Hi guys and welcome to Learn Extra Live. As you see, I've got Hayley next to me. How are you, Hayley?
Well, how are you, Indy?
Good, good. This is the first
Hi.
time I'm seeing Hayley this year, so happy 2013.
Thanks, and to you too, and hope that it's a great year.
Oh, it's going to be an amazing year.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
we've Learn Extra Live has already been on this week and it's been fantastic so far.
That's absolutely great. I'm so looking forward to today's
So
show.
looking forward to today's show as well. But now things have kind of changed, guys. So this is what I just want to take you through. So in today's show, it's Maths Lit. You have tuned in right, but now it is grade 10, 11, and 12 all in one show.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And
There's a
then-
lot of skills that go across all three grades, and
Yeah.
and I'll specifically say this is for matrics and
Yeah, and it's
we'll
going to
do
be so much fun. And the next show is going to be accounting.
I'm going over. Can I go over?
You go over. You go get ready. Hey, you go get everything ready. I'll tell you how it's going to work, guys. Okay, so today, the first hour is grade 10s to 12s, Maths Lit. The next show is grade 12, accounting. And then we have the last show from 6 to 7 is going to be business studies. So please join us on facebook.com/learn extra and keep your eyes peeled to the page, guys. I have some very exciting news about our ongoing presenter search. So if you are one of those presenters that did take place, you're going to be watching these shows today because we've got some big announcements coming up. Big up to Macmillan. You guys rock. Thank you so much for making this show possible. We think you guys are awesome. Also chat to us on Twitter @LearnExtra. We are here to help. So any questions you may have, please post them on the page or tweet us. But before we get started, sorry, Hayley, to take up so much time.
No problem. You do that. Am I
You see, she can't wait.
Am I going to my boards?
Yes,
to
but
show
I
them
just want to tell them
pages?
quickly that we need content. So, guys, please tell all of your teachers out there that they can email content@mindset.co.za. Content@mindset.co.za. So any content they may have, email it through to us. And I think let's get started with our lesson. Hayley, take it away.
Before I start with my lesson, Indy, do you want to explain the Facebook page, the Learn Extra page, and where they can go to get the notes?
Yes, yes. Before I forget, thank you, Hayley. Okay, before I forget,
Let me find it.
which is really, really amazing, and I'm so excited about this, guys. It's www.mindset.co.za/learn/extra/live. And if you have a look there, you'll see that you can actually get the show notes. They are available. You can download the notes, and then after the lesson has happened next week, we will then upload the videos. It's also a nice place to go and see your schedules, print it out, make sure you bookmark this because this is where everything is happening. This is where you get your notes, this is where you find the timetable, and this is where you stay in the know about everything that is happening, pretty much. And if you have any questions, post them onto our Facebook page. But now, let's talk about numbers. Hayley?
Okay, we're going to talk about numbers. I'm just going to show you the page. So that's the mindset page, and then you go click here, and it takes you to the schedule.
Oh,
And then
it's
you
so
can see that
pretty.
you've got notes, videos, and everything for lessons that happen on Monday. The notes and videos for my lesson will come up soon. They'll be in blue and red. So this is where you need to be. Okay, let's start with my lesson. Now I'm going to find that. Right, we are dealing with numbers and calculations. So that's what I'm doing, numbers and calculations. Let's see what we've got in store. So first of all, in this lesson, we're going to identify different types of numbers that are found in everyday life. Like, where do we find numbers, okay? And what kind of numbers are they? We're going to look at the way we write numbers, the way we talk about numbers. We're going to use estimation to find answers to calculations. Crucial skill to be able to make sense of your answer. It's crucial that we can estimate. We're going to revise how calculators, use of a calculator, and finally we're going to complete calculations with fractions and percentages. So, starting off with numbers. So, numbers are absolutely everywhere. So, okay, focus on me right now. So, numbers are everywhere. And I always say to my kids, when I start this lesson in class, I say to them, okay, think about 20 different numbers out there. And it takes them time to actually think, well, where are numbers? But you can think about the date, today's date, that's a number. Your birthday, that's a number. Cell phone is a wonderful number.
Where you
And there's-
live?
Where you live, your
Your
street address.
email?
So there are numbers absolutely all around there, all around us. And the way they're written can be slightly different. And we'll come back to that. Part of everyday life, we see them in different places. Numbers are used to measure different quantities, to put things in order, or as names or labels. We use words and symbols to represent numbers. Now, if any of you guys watched my shows last year, you knew that I started every show by looking at our Facebook numbers. So I am going to do that right now because to me, at this point in time, in my lesson, Indy, this is an important number. So let's
I
go
think this
through.
is a very important number.
Absolutely. On the 18th of October, which was the last time I did a grade 10 show last year, our number was 20,775. And look at the way the number's been written. There's a space between the 20 and the 7 because that signifies thousands. On the 31st of Jan, what is our number, Indy?
Oh my gosh. Okay, here's the number. You're never going to believe it.
Okay, I'm waiting.
Haley hasn't seen it. She's not going to believe it. And this is the true number. 28,597 at this very second, at this very moment, right
That is
now.
absolutely brilliant. Look at that. We've grown by 8,000
That's
likes on our page.
incredible.
Absolutely incredible. And considering it was all over the holidays and everything, so that's great. That, to me, is a wonderful number. But look at the way I've written it. I've got my 28 space 597. Let's go look at some numbers in everyday life. Right. What do these numbers mean? So, then I've got 23. What is 23? This is a rugby jersey. Okay? Rugby jersey, there are only 20, how many players? There are 22 players on a rugby team. 23 represents you, the fan. Do you remember those adverts?
fan
The
jersey.
fan jersey.
Fan jersey.
Okay? But the other numbers on the back of a jersey. Favorite soccer player, the number 10. And like we said, you get lucky numbers and unlucky number. 13 could be an unlucky number. 7 might be a lucky number. So, Indy, what's your lucky number?
That's very funny. My lucky number actually is 7.
Your
No,
lucky-
actually, I'm changing it to 10.
You're
10,
changing it to 10.
10's my lucky number.
So we've got a lucky number. Indy's lucky number is 10. My lucky number happens to be 8. So those are numbers. Okay. We could have 777 or 111. So there's various different numbers. What about this number? 911. Now I could call this as 911. You know, it's an emergency. We need to dial 911. Well, that's in America. But we all watch TV and we all know 911 is what you call for emergency. It could be 9/11. We could actually be talking about what happened 9/11 in America, and that was when the towers fell and everything else. So 9/11. So even just that simple number of 911, and I can get different meanings of it. And so let's look at some more numbers for a second. Different meanings. Now, if I had to write today's date, I would say 31st of the 1st. But I could also use a divider. Say, let's talk about cricket for a second. And if I was talking about a cricket match and the cricketers and the score was, say, 147 for 3, that has a different meaning. Now we've got 147 runs and we've lost 3 wickets. So there's a whole lot of different ways of writing numbers and interpreting numbers. And kind of instinctively, I know that you know how to do this. We make it easier. If I was writing a telephone number, let's change color for a bit. If I was writing a telephone number and I had 082, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Look at the way I've written the number. I've got my 082, that's my exchange. Then I've got 3 numbers and 4 numbers because it's easier to read and it's easier to understand. So if I put all these numbers together, it's actually harder to read and probably easier to make a mistake if you're actually dialing the number. Another number I want to discuss for a moment is 14,3. Now, there's so many different ways that I can interpret this 14,3. So firstly, if I had to say 14,3 kilograms, that basically means we've got 14 kilograms and 300 grams. So that's one way of looking at that number. But if I had to go back to my cricket, and if I had to look at the runs of 14,3, sorry, the overs of 14,3, what does that mean? That means 14 overs and 3 balls. And in my first example, I'm expecting that to go up to 0,5, 6, 7, all the way up to 10, when then it becomes 15. And in this one, it's going to go 14,3, 14,4, 5, and then it'll go to 15, because there are only 6 balls in an over. So all these numbers, start looking out for numbers around you. Let's move on. Right. We also have the decimal number system. That's what we use. There's only 9 numbers. So we've got 0 and all the way to 9. And with any combination of those combinations, we can create units. So, for example, I've got Indy's favorite number, her lucky number. Okay, I can do, I suppose that wasn't units. I suppose I should actually go back to my favorite number.
Oh.
And then let's go with the tens. Now we can go with Indy's favorite number.
Yay.
Hundreds. And what do they mean? Hundreds. Now I'm going to give you a number, and let's talk about rands. Okay, so I have 695 rand. Again, I've put an R in front of it, and I've totally changed the concept of what this number represents. Now it represents quite a fair amount of money. We also get numbers that are smaller than 1. Smaller than 1. We can talk about a tenth, so like 0.5, or I can write it as a half. Hundredth, okay, so if I talk about, let's go back to my rands. If I talk about my 695 rand, what about if it was 95 cents? That's a hundredth, the 95 cents. Thousandths, give you another example. Let's change the color for a second. Okay, so I could go 0.328. And that could be a number, okay? I could be measuring something and I want it to be exact. So I'll measure it to like the thousandth. And finally, it's important is we've got time. Time is an important number, and what's important to remember is that 60 seconds is 1 minute. So if I end up with an answer like 2.5 minutes, that does not mean 2 minutes and 50 seconds, but that rather means 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And what I would do there is I would actually say my 0.5 and times that by 60, because there's 60 seconds in a minute. And then from that I would get 30. So this actually represents, and I can write it like this, it represents 2 minutes and 30 seconds. So there's another way I can write my numbers. Again, 60 minutes in an hour. And then if we go on, we can carry on talking about days. So now we've got 24 hours in a day. And if I look at a clock, I can look at a 24-hour clock. So I can have the time of 20:20. And that's 20 minutes past 8 in the evening. So all these numbers we need to be able to understand. 7 days is 1 week. And the last thing I want to actually add to this, I'm going to add to this. We normally talk about 4 weeks in 1 month. Now, I know this is not 100% correct, because the only month that actually has 4 weeks is February. But when we do our calculations in MathsLit, we normally assume either it's the month of February or we assume that there are 4 weeks in this month. So I'm going to add that to my notes. Right, let us look at some questions. I think we've got about enough time to do this. Right, so we're looking at solutions of all, the Maths Literacy Grade 10, Chapter 1 on page 3. So write the following using number system. So 8:30. So what am I going to do? Let's make it an A there. 8:30 means it's 8 hours and half an hour, which is 30 minutes. Now it doesn't tell us if it's 8 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock in the evening. So I could actually say, well, or either or, and I could be using a 24-hour clock, it could be 20 hours 30. So both of those numbers actually represent 8:30. 20 to 9. Well, if I think about 20 to 9, I've now got to think about my 60 minutes. So 20 to 9 is in fact 8 hours and 40 minutes. So it's 20 minutes before the 9, and that's where my 20 minutes come from, because I'm going to make that up to 60. So it's 8:20, and again, it could be 8:40 in the evening. 3/8. an eighth. Let's change color. We've got 3 parts out of 8. 3/8. That's an easy one. And then I'm going to, let's move it up a little bit. No, I'm going to move it up too much. Right, 80,080. Now it's important when we write this that we do this carefully. So we've got 80,000. Okay, we can start by doing it that. And then I've got to put in 80. So I can add them like that. Or alternatively, I could just write it straight. Well, let's write it here. It was 80,080. What's important is to not forget these zeros in between. These zeros have a huge consequence. 820. Well, finally, I'm going to put E over here. 820. So that's quite an easy one to end off with. I think it's time to take a bit of a break. So I'm going to hand you back to Indy, and I'll see you soon.
Okay, guys, it's time to take a little break, as Hayley said. But before you go, I do want to let you know that we do have supplementary school, which is on in the mornings. It started on the 28th of January. So please make sure that you have anyone that is rewriting to send them to 319 and tell them that we are here to help them with all their supplementary exam revision needs. Let's go and take a little break, have some water, jump up and down, and get that energy going. See you now. Hi guys, and welcome back to Learn Extra Live, grade 10s, 11s and 12. This is Maths Lit, and I hope you're joining in and having lots of fun. The page is far too quiet, guys. That's facebook.com/Learn Extra. We need you to start interacting with us. Let us know if there's anything you need help with, if there's anything you're not understanding. Please post it on the page or chat to us at Learn Extra. If you promise to come and chat to us, to learn more and learn extra, I have a big announcement for you guys. If any of you or anyone you know tried out for the presenter search, we will be, in today's show, posting on the page our top 15, and then we're going to get you guys, the mind setters, to vote. So this is very important, guys. It is up to you to choose new people to put in this here seat that I'm sitting in right now. And there's a lot of talent. There is a lot of talent. So keep watching the page, keep watching this space. And I just want to show you, this is the Macmillan book that we're using for a lot of the content that is, that Hayley's going through. It's pretty cool. I just wanted to show it up so you can see the cover. Hayley, on that, I think we should carry on. It's all about numbers, guys.
All about numbers. Okay, let's go back to our page. So welcome back. Right, let's see what we're doing. Next thing we're doing is estimation. Okay, so before we go read the page, what is estimation? Estimation is when exactly that, you estimate an answer. Now for the grade 10s and 11s, this is a crucial skill because it actually will be tested. The grade 12s, not tested as such, but it allows you to make sense of your answer. So you cannot just say, well, my calculator gave me that answer, therefore it must be true, because it's very easy for us to actually make a mistake with a calculator. So what I need you to do is make sense of the answer. Does it actually make sense? In the back of your mind, you should have a solution, or at least know where we're heading. So let's go to the page now. We need to practice the skill of estimation. We do this to help check our answers, even when we're using a calculator. So easily make a mistake. The other thing like I do, and I don't know about you guys, but when I go to the shop, I think to myself, okay, I've got 200 Rand in my wallet. So I'm sure you do this too, Indy. I've got 200 Rand in my wallet. Can I afford to buy this? And in my head, I'm like adding up my purchases as I go along. And I realize that I'm out or have a problem. So the next thing we need to look at is rounding. So another thing that's important, there are times that the answers given on the calculator has too many numbers in it. We need to round off our answer. When dealing with money, and this is an important, crucial fact, when dealing with money, we no longer have 1 cent and 2 cent pieces. So prices have to be rounded down to the nearest 5 cents. So we always end up with a rounding answer at the end of our purchases, where they round down to the nearest 5 cents. And in actual fact, pretty soon we're not going to have 5 cents anymore. So we're going to have to learn to round down to the nearest 10 cents. And the shops end up losing a fair amount of money with this rounding story. Because every person that goes into the shop that pays cash, they're losing between 1 and 4 cents. So if you add that up with how many people are actually shopping, it can actually end up to be quite a lot of money. But let's practice some estimation. So what we're going to do is we're going to just do a quick example. We're going to estimate the following without using a calculator. So my question was 23,450 plus 52,704. And I want to do this to the nearest 10,000. So I'm going to estimate that to be 23,000. And to that I'm going to add 53,000. Now I can ignore the thousand, so it's quite easy for me to add my 23 and 53, and I see that I end up with 76,000. Now if I type that into my calculator and I get something totally different, then I know I've made a mistake. So I know where my answer should be. Let's try another one. If I look at the answer of 54 times 8, well, okay, let's make it 50 times 8. And then it's actually easier for me to multiply the 5 times 8, and 5 times 8 is 40, and then add another 0. So I'm looking at 400. So already, if I have an idea, it makes it a whole lot easier. I tell you what, that book that Indy was showing you, I also have a copy of it. So let us look at our book that we have and try and estimate the perimeter of this book. I'll get rid of the calculator, don't need that. So I want you to think about this book, and in your mind, think about your ruler. And if you've got a 30 centimeter ruler, does this look like it's bigger or smaller than a 30 centimeter ruler? So I'm going to ask Indy right now to help me off, because Indy, does it look bigger or smaller than a 30 centimeter ruler?
It looks smaller.
It looks smaller. Indy says it looks smaller. So should we go a little bit smaller or a lot smaller?
A little bit smaller.
A little bit smaller. So should we estimate this to be about 27 centimeters?
I would say 27.
27 centimeters. Okay. And going across, what do we say? Now, you can also compare it like to your hand. Compare it to your arm. So we can actually put it in. I don't know if you can see that. I can put it into my arm and try and estimate. I like to look at it as kind of a relationship of the two. So, give me a number.
Sure. 17 centimeters.
17 centimeters. Okay, so now if I wanted to work out the perimeter, I'm going to add these and multiply that by 2. So that would give me the perimeter. And in actual fact, I could have rounded it off to even numbers. I could have made it 30 times 15. The most important thing to remember, grade 10s and 11s, is that if you're doing an estimation question in an exam, you almost can't be marked wrong. I'm not going to say you can't be, but if your estimation makes sense, your teacher's going to have to give you the solution. It's going to have to actually give you the marks. So, give me a second. Let me get our ruler. Okay, let's measure it now. So, going across, our 17 was not too bad. It was 21. 21 centimeters across, and the length of the book is 26.5 centimeters. How close were we? Let's put that down.
I should have known those dimensions. It's like the size of an A4 sheet.
Like an A4 sheet.
Yeah.
So in actual fact, our answer should have been, it was 2 times 21 centimeters and 16.5 centimeters. But look how close we were. And that's the thing, with an estimation, close is good enough. Let's move on to the next part of the lesson. Right, basic operations. The 4 basic operations are your addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Now remember, grade 10s and 11s, your calculator that you have to use in the exam is the 4-function calculator that only does addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. The matrics, you can still use a scientific calculator. Having said that, grade 10s and 11s, you can still use the scientific calculator, but you don't have to use it. So your questions are going to be designed in such a way that a 4-function calculator is good enough. But what is important with a 4-function calculator is to remember our BODMAS. So let's go through this. Right. The order of operations. That's really important. You must always follow BODMAS. So what is BODMAS? Find some space. Just a quick revision. BODMAS, that's your brackets of division, multiplication, addition, and subtraction. So you must do that in order. In fact, if you're using a 4-function calculator, what I suggest is get into the habit of pressing equals. Doing one little part, press equals, the next little part, press equals, because you actually will then probably take into account your bod mass. Now, what about fractions? Fractions represents part of a whole. Remember we did our 3/8. So just now we had 3/8. That means it's 3 parts out of 8 parts. And we can perform the 4 operations on fractions too. So fractions can be worked the same way. When adding or subtracting fractions, we really first have to get the lowest common denominator for the 2 fractions. I'm going to show you an example in a second. And then we can add or subtract the numerators, or as I say to my kids, the top number. So the denominator, bottom number, we need to have that the same. Then we can just add or subtract the top number. When multiplying fractions, we can multiply the numerator and the denominator together. Multiply the top, then multiply the bottom. When dividing by a fraction, what we actually do is we invert it and multiply. For this, let me just show you a quick example. Let's find some space. So, let's do some simple ones quickly. So if I had a half plus a third, I need to get common multiple, so that is a 6. So that is 3/6 plus 2/6, and we end up with 5/6. So we add the top, keep the denominator the same. If I was multiplying them, let's make it 2/3. Okay. We multiply the top, multiply the bottom. So we end up with 2/6. And if we were dividing, what we do is, if I say now a half divided by a third, what I do is I flip it and multiply. So I flip that, so I end up with a half times by 3/1. And now I'll go back to doing what I did before, multiply the tops and multiply the bottom. So fairly easy. What you need to do is practice. And this is important, to have the same calculator. Really would like you to have the same calculator from grade 10 to matric. You're not allowed to lose them. Ain't it? Is that fair?
I think that's fair.
Not
Except
allowed to
I
lose it.
always lost my calculator. I was that kid.
Make a note of which calculator you're using, though, so that if you have to replace your calculator, you know exactly which one it is. Because you get used to a specific calculator. And definitely don't go into an exam or a test with a brand new calculator that you've never practiced on. It's important that you practice on your calculator.
You and your calculator should become friends.
My kids laugh at me because my calculator's in my bag. I always have my calculator in my handbag. And they laugh at me. I don't understand it.
No, it's good advice. It's good advice.
Okay. Let's try this now. Without using a calculator, complete the following. So here's some examples. So what we have is 1 1/6 plus 3 2/3 divided by 2 and 5/12. So what we're going to do is I'm going to change them into fractions. So what I do here, let's find pen. So 6 times 1 is 6, plus 1 is 7/6, plus 3 times 3 is 9, plus 2 is 11/3, divided by 12 times 2 is 24, plus 5 is 29/12. Now I'm going to bear in mind that I have to use my bod mass. So what do I have to do first? There's no brackets. I need to divide. So I'm actually doing this part of the solution first. So I'm going to now flip this and multiply. So let's get my yellow pen again. Leaving that as it is. And I've got 11/3 times by 12/29. And now I said I'm doing this part first. And I can get my calculator out, and I can actually get my calculator to help me multiply these numbers. So let's get the calculator. And I'm going to say 11 times 12. Now I know I should know that, especially 12 multiplications. Do you know what, guys? You've got a calculator. So use your calculator. Really not an issue, even if you have to multiply 4 times 2. I really don't mind. It's important that you use it. So this is 132. I'm going to write this again. So first of all, my 7 over 6 is there, plus 132 over, now 3 times 29 is 87. Right. Now I need to add these. I need to have a multiple of 6. And because I have a calculator, what I'm going to do is I'm going to first check if 6 goes into 87. So on my calculator, see if I divide that by 6, it goes in. It doesn't go in exactly, so I'm going to ignore that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the multiple, back to my notes. I need the same one, so I'm going to say 87 times 6. 87 times 6, and I've got 522. 522 plus, that's going to be 522. So 6 goes into there 87 times, so 87 times 7. There's my calculator. 87 times 7, and I get 609. And then 87 is 6 times, so 132 times 6 is 792. And finally, I'm going to add these up. If you're using a scientific calculator, you could have typed this straight in and got an answer. So add these up, 609 and 792 plus 609, and I get 1401. So my answer, in actual fact, is 1401 over 522. Now, if I needed to simplify that, I'm going to take my 1401, divide by 522, and see if it can be simplified. It can be simplified to 467 over 174. Okay, 467 over 174. But I could have left it as this bigger number. That's absolutely perfect. I think it's time for a little bit of a
Let's
breather.
take a bit of a break.
Give them a
I
bit
don't
of
know
a
what it's like
breather.
in the rest of the country, guys, but Josie is very, very hot. So I just want to say, get yourself a glass of water. Make sure that you're properly hydrated. Grade 10s, 11s, and 12, and especially the grade 12s. It's January. Let's start this new year off to a fresh start. Get going straight from the beginning. Tell all of your friends to tune in to Learn Extra Live 319. It's very important. If you stick with us, we'll help you through all the way to the end of the year. See you after the break. Hi guys, and welcome back. I hope that you're enjoying the show. I can't believe how fast it's gone. I think we've got about 15 minutes left or something like that. Ridiculous. Make sure you join us on our page, facebook.com/learn. Facebook.com/learn extra. Make sure that you're chatting to us. And we've got Daniel that says, so if you didn't flip the fraction, you're going to get the wrong answer. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you're dividing by fraction, you must flip it and multiply. If you're using a scientific calculator, then of course you don't need to, because that will do it for you. That's perfect. So can I take it away now?
Yes, take it
Yeah.
away.
During the break, I was looking at our pages because they were put up for me, and I thought, wow, first of all, supplementary schools. I
Supplementary
thought
school,
I will
very, very
actually
exciting.
talk about. So if you know anybody that's doing any subs, not sure when they're writing Indeed, do you have any idea?
I think the 11th of Feb, I heard.
11th of
Yeah.
Feb. Everything that you need is here for you. So go to the page, and then the other thing is
The
that I was
presenter
looking at
search.
the presenter search. Tell me, I'm
Okay.
so excited about this.
I know. Haley's asked me what's happening with this presenter search. Guys, if you did, and if you have seen the auditions, I'm going to post them up on the page again. We had episode 1, 2, and 3. We saw a whole bunch of mind setters, and we've actually managed was very hard to get it down to the top 15, and we need you guys to vote for the top 10. To keep your eyes peeled to the page, and if you are one of those mindsetters, please let us know if you are watching, and tell all of your friends to tune in and to start and to get ready to start voting, pretty much.
So it's so exciting. It's so exciting that we're going to be dealing with new people, and I'm looking forward to that. Okay, let's go back to my notes. Right, back to the fractions. I'm just going to quickly go through this, but I really want to do, and every week what we're going to do is we're going to be doing some grade 12 questions. So come out of grade 12 past papers. So I want to do that. So I'm going to quickly fly through this. Another fraction, but remember your BODMAS, so we need to multiply before we minus. And the next one has actually got two things in it. So we're first going to do, let's do this in stages. We're going to do our bracket first, because that's the first part of our BODMAS, so that's going to be first. Then we're going to multiply. So I'm going to kind of put a bracket around that. And then we're going to add. So I don't think I need to do the actual sum. I'm pretty sure that you guys can do it, and the notes are available for you. So let's move on to our exam type question. So this is a question now that has been adapted from the NCS DBE Feb March 2009 paper 1 question 1. Now I know if you're matric, you've been sitting and watching the show and thinking, now I know all that. What's important is that these are the skills that you need for everything, and especially in your paper 1. Now these kind of questions you really should be getting close to 100% for them. So maybe a couple of like silly, careless mistakes, you might lose a little bit. You really should be getting these questions right. I'm hoping that that's what we aim for. So we need to aim for the 100%. And if you do your estimation correctly, if you do your rounding, you make sense of your answer, you should easily get it. So paper 1 really is our easy paper. Do the following calculations, and it says show all calculations in full. And it's important that we always show all our working. Like I say to the kids that I teach in class, I want to see what you are thinking. If I can see what you're thinking, if I can follow your train of thought, then I can actually allocate marks. So, write 47% as a common fraction. Well, what does 47% mean? It means 47 out of 100, because clear percent is part of 100. So 47% as a common fraction is just 47 over 100. If you'd like to take your calculator and see if it can be simplified, then just divide 47 by 100, but you'll see that it actually can't be simplified. So our number stayed 47 over 100. That's a common fraction. Right, let's see, I think the next question is on the next page. Write 78 over 120 as a decimal fraction. So to show all working, I'm going to actually write my 78 divided by 120, and now I can actually press equals. Now on my calculator, all I need to do is I actually need to, you can use your fraction button, because matrics, you've definitely got a fraction button. So 78 divided by 120, press equals, and then you write it as 0.65. Remember your SD button. So 0.65. Now that's a decimal. Alternatively, if you don't have a fraction button, then all we need to do is say 78 divided by 120, and we get the same answer. So remember, your fraction is over is divide. So that's easily enough. Okay. Our next question says, do the following calculations. So all calculations in full. So we need to simplify 1.2 meters plus 23.5 meters times 5 minus 4.7 meters. Now what they're expecting at this point is, I know if you've got a scientific calculator, you can just really type this in and get an answer. But what they're expecting is they want to see all the steps. So they want to see that you follow the BODMAS. So I'm going to write it out, and then I'm going to actually estimate an answer before I carry on. So 1.2 meters. If these units worry you, then ignore the units. In fact, let us ignore the units. Because sometimes I find that the units actually get in my way of the numbers. But then don't forget, in your final answer, your final step, you must include a unit. Maths Lit, always has a reference. We very seldom actually just have a number on its own. We're dealing with money or rands or meters, but we have a reference and we have a unit. So I'm going to say 1.2 plus, I need to calculate this bracket first. So that's my first step. So 23, I'm just actually rewriting this. 0.5 times 5, I'm taking out the units. I'm going to do that first. And then minus 4.7 meters. Now I'm also going to think about this as an estimation. If I estimate, so we're going to first estimate, and I'm going to do this in yellow. I'm going to make that 1 meter. Plus 23.5 times 5, well, it's going to be easy for me to multiply 20. Or maybe I can multiply it as 25. So 25 times 5 is 125. And then minus 5. So what kind of answer am I expecting? 120, I'm going to minus. If I add, I'm expecting an answer that should be about 121 meters. And now let's see what happens. Let's go back to our green pen. So I've got 1.2 plus 23.5 times 5. So let's get our calculator out. 23.5 times 5. And we get an answer of 117.5. Minus 4.7. And now I can probably even do this in another step and leave my 1.2 and add, let's do that, minus. Now in my calculator I've already got that, so I'm going to minus 4.7 and I get an answer of 112.8. Add my 1.2 and get my final answer, so plus 1.2, my final answer of 114. Now I'm going to actually compare my answer to the answer that I estimated. So I see that it's 114 and my estimation was 121. So my question to you is this a good enough answer? Have I got those marks? And I'm thinking I probably do. Because when I rounded my 23.5, let me go back up, I rounded my 23.5 up. So I'm going to get an answer that's slightly bigger than the answer I should be expecting. So I actually needed it to be less than 121. So I think my estimation's right, and I think my answer's right. And this is important that you show all these steps. We can also go and just double check that we've done our BODMAS correctly by going back to the question and saying 1.2 plus, open my bracket, 23.5 times my 5, close my bracket, minus 4.7, just to double check, and I see that I get 114. So it's always nice to be able to check your answers. It's really nice to come out of a test and an exam and say, I know I got that because I checked it and it made sense. Let's move on to the next question. Whoops. Move too far. Still adapted from the same paper. Calculate 14% VAT on 24,650 Rand. So what we have here is we have 24,650 and we are calculating our VAT portion. Remember percentage, we always multiply. And our VAT is 14%. And with that, we can just get an answer. So it was 24,650 times by 14%, and you get an answer. Now, this is important that you're using the same calculator. Some calculators, as you type the percent button, it gives you the answer. Some calculators, you have to press equals. It's important that you work with your calculator, that you always have your calculator handy. So it was 3451. Now let's write that in. It was 3451. And there's a unit to it. And as I'm saying there's a unit to it, did I write meters in the last one? Were you paying attention, Indy?
No, I was
going back to
Facebooking.
check that. I'm going back to check that. I did it. As I was saying units, there is always a unit. And you always need to go back, check, and double check. So this 114 that we had here was actually 114 meters. Let's go back to my rands now. I feel like I'm all over the place today. I want to go back and reread the question. It said, calculate 14% VAT on 24650, 24,650. Have I got the answer? I have given them the VAT portion. Why I reread the question was that I was wondering, did they want me to add the VAT to that number? And they never said add the VAT, they just said calculate the VAT. So it's really important that you get the wording of the question correct. And those are the kind of things that you pick up when you reread the question. So my advice to you always, and I know you've heard me say this 100 times, read the question, do the calculations, reread the question, and see if your answer makes sense. Okay, so 3,451 Rand, and I think that takes us to the end of that. No, it doesn't. There's another question. I was hoping it wasn't the end. It says simplify 1/3 times 3 cubed plus the root of 64. So now I'm going to use my calculator to do this. And I'm going to do 1/3 times by my calculator out. Calculator can tell me all this. 3 cubed is 27. And then plus my root of 64. I'm going to do that at the same time. And that is 8. Let's just delete that mark that I have here. And add the 8. Okay, now I'm going to do my multiplication. You know what, I'm going to do it on my calculator. But remember, even though I'm doing it on my calculator, guys, I am showing the steps. So it's kind of like, it's just like legal cheat. Indeed, is that a nice way of putting it? It's
Legal
a legal cheat.
As long as it's legal, then it's fine.
It's absolutely
Then it's
legal.
fine.
You've got your calculator with you. So I know 3 cubed is 27. I've been working with numbers long enough to know that in my head. But you know what? When it comes to an exam, I know you guys tend to panic. Use your calculator. It's there for you, so absolutely use it. And I'm even going to do this on my calculator, even though I know what the answer is going to be. So I'm going to use my fraction. I've got 1/3, and I'm going to say that's times by 27, and get an answer of 9. For my grade 10s and 11s that are watching that don't have scientific calculators, I just want to show you that this 1/3, so let's do this on the side here in a different color totally. 1/3 times by 27, I can make that 27/1. And now multiplying fractions, remember what we did earlier? So that basically gives me 27/3, and 27 divided by 3 is 9. So you can use your fractions. Whole numbers can be made into a fraction if you divide it by 1. But my grade 12s that are out there, you've got your calculators. So plus 8, and even my 9 plus 8, I'm going to actually do it on the calculator, is 17, especially at the end of a long day, Indy. 17, it doesn't look like a 7. Let's try that again. 17. And now I've got all my workings, and I should actually get all the marks. What I am going to do, though, is I'm going to just check this out, that I haven't made any mistakes. So I write it exactly the way it's written on the paper, and I've got my fraction, 1/3, times by, open my bracket, 3, close my bracket, cubed, plus the square root of 64, and I get an answer of 17. So I've even checked it, so I know that it is correct. And now I honestly think that takes us to the end. So that is the last question. So what I want to just say to you guys, I could go back and do those fractions, but I'd rather just talk to you for a moment. Read the question, reread the question, and start looking for numbers out there. Numbers around you. What bus number? What bus? Indy wants to say something.
I've got a little quick question. I know I have to jump in because we've got like 1 minute left. And I want to answer this question. So this is Boipelo B. And she's asked, can we use decimals instead of percentages? It gives the same answer, but are there marks for it?
It depends on whether they've actually said calculate a percent, and then they want to know the percentage. Then they're expecting a number out of 100, so like 30%. So really does depend on the context of the question.
So guys, read your questions properly.
Because if they ask for a percentage and you give me 0.3, to me, that's going to seem like, let's just find some space. So if I look at 30%, and let's assume 30% was my answer, that is the same as 30 over 100, which is 0.3. But if the answer asked for percentage, I would go with the percentage.
Okay,
But I have
over
to
to
say
me.
goodbye.
We have come to the end of the show. I can't believe how fast that went. Mindsetters, don't forget our format has changed. This has been Maths Lit, grade 10, 11, and 12, and next will be accounting. And then from 6 to 7, it will be business studies. Thank you so much, Macmillan, for sponsoring this show. You guys rock. Guys, have an amazing day. See you same time, same place next week. Bye.